Good morning. It is 8:53 a.m. on Saturday, October 24th, 2020. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up after sleeping in a little, and I'm having some tea. This is 5 more minutes. Rocket is definitely in a chewing mood this morning. It happens. He's hustling back and forth looking for new things to chew on, and I've occasionally been having to interfere with, like, no, nope, not that. Oh, or not that either. Oh, well, that's maybe okay, but I'll have to pay attention. Plastic containers in particular are very appealing for him to chew on, but he reaches a point eventually where he does start to make holes in them and tear off little bits, and that's where I have to take it away, because even though he is not inclined to swallow those little pieces, he doesn't try to. I need to make sure he doesn't, because that could be bad news. But yeah, he's a little dog. He wants to chew on things. So I got a little distracted this morning, but before recording this, by audio ambiances for role-playing games. And in particular, there's a program called Sirenscape that makes these customized these customized little ambiances that'll have like wind noise and music and sound effects and everything. And I've been I've tried out a lot of different sort of sources for these things. Sirenscape is pretty good. Then there's also Tabletop Audio, which can be integrated with Roll20. And I've used a fair amount of those for games that I've run over the years. And it's always a little bit tricky because there's no perfect right answer. Like, there are definitely times where, like Sirenscape, or tabletop audio for that matter, like occasionally what you'll have is something that is like it's perfect, except that I wish they didn't have those weird bird noises in the middle of this particular one. Or hey, this one is good, but the music sounds a little cheesy, that sort of thing. There's never going to be something that's 100% perfect. But that's not even really what I mean. Like, even sometimes when we have one that I think is great, it becomes a question of how to balance the volume of it against other things, especially given that, when I'm playing online. See, it's one thing, this I think would be an entirely different question if we were playing in a room around a table. But over online, it's a question of, do the other players hear the sound at all? And if so, it might be compressed and artifacted by virtue of being, compressed into the vocal range for, a video chat program. And so that can make it weird. And also things like Google Hangouts will do this weird volume balancing thing where it'll adjust the volume of it, and that can be distracting. And then there are also just some people for whom, when they want to listen to voices, having music in the background or wind noise in the background is distracting for them and makes it harder for them to concentrate rather than easier to immerse themselves. And so there's a lot of different things to consider here and there. But I have been just this morning listening to some of the Sirenscape soundscapes that they've got that are custom specifically for the Rime of the Frost Maiden campaign that I'm running. Some of them are pretty good, so I've been kind of trying to decide if I want to actually try to use some of those. Yeah, I'm excited by it. I find the addition of some light music and sound effects to be very compelling in terms of my immersiveness in the scene. Although my personal preference is for light ambiance, maybe occasional subtle sound effects, and maybe some accompanying music. But generally, I don't want to have like the sounds of sword swings and the roars of a monster and that sort of thing. I find that those ultimately distract because there's no way to have them happen at the perfect time. And also, the problem with those tends to be that when you are making something that sounds approximately like the pace of combat you might expect in a real fight, like if you were watching it in a movie or if it was really happening, but that doesn't really match the actual pace of action in D&D combat, because you're talking through things and rolling dice and stuff, and like, every single round, which might take half an hour to get through, is supposed to be only 6 seconds. And so the frequency of roars and sword swings and squelches and so on tends to not match what's actually happening, and so that can be distracting too. Anyway, though, that's kind of what I'm thinking about today, because we'll have another episode of Rime of the Frost Maiden tonight at 7 p.m. So feel free to check that out. We're having lots of fun with that. And I'll talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes when, of course, I will be continuing my rewatch of The Legend of Korra.